Good morning or good afternoon, whichever time you're logging in to this Zoom call. It's quite funny because, when I was thinking of this recording, I thought, okay, I'll have some PowerPoint slides. I'll also have a nice background. But you know what? Ultimately, I think it's nice to be authentic. It's nice to really show what are the internal workings at VeryHR. So welcome to my home office. And this is going to be a bit more like a chat, like some ideas for you to start thinking about when you think about your people within your franchise industry. Obviously, I'm going to tell you it's important to have a HR structure in place, whichever one you choose, so that you remain compliant. Now, if compliance is at the forefront of your mind, there are many organizations out there which can issue you with templates. And I know this is a solution that a lot of franchisors or franchisees choose. You join FSB, for example, you get tons of templates, or you can join partener. And for a small fee, you will also get a little bit of HR advice based on best practice and templates. So it's a reasonably good solution. However, obviously, nowadays, I believe that HR brings and needs to bring something completely different to the table. Absolutely, compliance, there is no avoiding that. And with our 8 years of experience in the UK and international market, we're definitely there for you to support you with the documentation. Where our service really differs is that we really focus our attention on the industry, on you and your business and what makes you different. Did you know that in 2019, for example, 45% of senior managers within franchise businesses ended up leaving? Now, that's close to 1 out of 2 when you think of the cost of hiring one of these senior leaders, the cost of training them, the cost of losing them, and the gap that it creates with the clients and all of that. That's the cost aspect. On the other hand, I would say that there's a huge cost on trust, on this element that is so critical nowadays when we look at managing people. One, a lot of us are working remotely. Without the trust, it's not possible. 2, you want to really bring in people who believe in what it is that you're offering in the market, who really believe that when they join your franchise, they're going to be looked after, they're going to be supported. And that implies a trusting relationship. And when you really look at trust, what is that? It's being consistent. It's being clear on the direction that the business is going with, being clear in communications and standing by what you say, which is fine when you have your own business, with 15, 60, 200 employees. It is easier to roll out such a communication plan and such practices. When it's a franchise, it's a lot different. So, for example, if you were to download a free employment contract template from Google, there are loads of those, and deploy that out within your franchise, how do you know that that template brings in that trust? How do you know that that template makes people excited about working alongside you? At VeryHR, we really look at these elements. So it's not just about, here's a Word document. It's really about understanding what makes you different. What makes you different from the next competitor? What are your values and what actions are attributed to those values? So we do some work around that, and then we continue that thread through recruiting because you want to hire people who are excited to be there. If you bring in someone who, let's be frank, spends their day just going, then apologies for that, then it's not going to make it a successful assignment. Sometimes in business, we need people to jump in on a Friday night and help solve a problem, for example. Well, if someone's not excited at work, they're not going to be there. They're not going to be counted. And vice versa. Sometimes we need to be there for employees. Lockdown. How do you manage that? Return to work. How do you manage that? People's situations now are so individual and diverse that, a flexible working arrangement for employee A will be completely different to employee B. How do you manage that? So pulling the thread, this is who we are as an organization. This is what we stand for. And there's a multitude of different messages that you can put in there. So you hire people against those values, against, for example, do you want someone to be learning rapidly? Do you want them to be autonomous, or do you want them to follow specific rules and guidelines? That has a different DNA. Then the person comes in. How do you onboard them? And I think one of the most important thing in the franchise industry is all of those standards. You want that someone who is onboarded in Nottingham will have the same onboarding or successful onboarding than someone who is in Southampton, for example. You want to measure them in the same way and collect feedback. How are you onboarding someone? Is it successful? Every single time we finish onboarding someone, it's really looking back at what worked well, what can be improved on. Having end of probation meetings. And then managing performance, managing by objectives, for example, managing all of these employee relation issues that no book, seriously, no book can tell you about. And that's when, the chinks in the chain, when there are some issue coming up, that's when it starts really sucking up time, time that business owners, as I know myself, don't usually have. So this is why you would consider bringing an outsourced HR organization such as VeryHR, where I like to give my partners and myself the same portfolio of clients. Personality matches. My personality might not be the right one for your business. However, one of my partners might be more suited to you or your industry and be able to advise you better. So we get to know your business very intimately. We get to know your employees on the reasonably more people managers and so on. And we're not only HR, we are also trainers. So we can agree with you on, okay, what is important to us during the recruitment process, or how do we want to manage performance management here? For example, you could have an annual process. So, from January, you set objectives, and December, you review the objectives, everyone gets a rating, and that brings in performance pay rises, promotions, or performance improvement plans. Well, that's very good, but now the world is changing. To be honest, and to be fair, a lot of my clients right now have no idea what their industry will look like in the next 4 months, let alone in the next 12 months. So we have transformed their businesses. Having a performance management process that is not in line with that transformation, why are you still doing it? So with some of those businesses, we've removed the annual review process because, we can't pay promotions, or getting a rating is not as exciting as actually getting a pay rise or an ad hoc bonus, depending on the role, on the industry, and things like that. So with these customers, we've removed the annual process, and some of them we're having quarterly coaching sessions. And there it's really about not just managing the process and the paperwork. I know HR is a very paperwork or forms heavy department, but it's really about educating your people managers how to give feedback. How to give feedback in a productive way so that your direct reports or their direct reports can do something about it. So there are different, coaching techniques which we can share with your team. There are EQ, emotional intelligence development models that we also use. If one of your franchisors, for example, just manages, the business numbers, which in my view is 50% of their actual job, but don't manage people, then you're going to have some issues after a while, because people have emotions, as we know, and people have their own challenges and need to feel supported and trusted throughout. So it's not about VeryHR coming in and taking over everything. We'd like to, and it's not helpful. You'll end up having significant bills for our time, which is not the idea. The idea is to train your people to have discussions with you on what is this common thread. If you think about, the place of work 20 years ago, no, probably more than that. Let's go to, my parents' generation, or, grandparents' generations. You would go in and have a job for life, pretty much. You would go in, have your insurance, and you'd be in a role, you'd be promoted every couple of years, and that would be it. Nowadays, people are motivated by different things. So I could be in business development 1 year, then move to marketing, then move to social media, and from that move to being more internal to the business, looking at marketing analytics or web content or SEO. Or people move really fast these days, and that is because people tend to now want to join brands rather than a job. In my 20s, it was all about, let's join Google. Google was the apotheosis of, great employer to be in. And if you think about it, it wasn't, I want to join Google because it's I'm going to do a cool HR job. It was because of this image, this brand. That's the ticket word, the brand that Google had. So when you think of your franchise and the brand that you're releasing outside to the market, and how you have all the quality assurance to make sure your products are standard to the ones that you're releasing overall, well, it's the same thing with your internal brand, because happy employees, let's use the word engaged employees who understand how their work matters. Not like, yay, well done us, we've sold, thousands of units this week or whatever. But do you know what? The work you did on Friday, or this document, contributed to us being able to deliver X. That has a complete different motivational factor. It's kind of, throughout my whole career, it's always been really important for any employee or contractor who enters your business should be able to sell your product. From the receptionist to your sales development leader, to your HR, to your accounting, to your marketing, to your customer success. All of these guys should be able to speak excitedly about your products to their friends and family. Not only that, but they should know how they matter. So the example of a receptionist, that's an important job. They pick up the phone. They're the first point of contact that a potential client has with you. They are the ones who, in the good olden days, would help set up a room before an important meeting. If the room wasn't set up, if the photocopies weren't made, or the attachments weren't there, or the sandwiches were stale from the night before, it would not work and it would matter. So it's having HR in a business is a complete different perspective on how you use your HR professional in a franchise environment. So, it would be about coming in, building that thread, and making sure it goes through all of the areas of your business, from the time someone comes in to the time they leave, including training and development, and all of these different factors. Obviously, our budgets all differ depending on size of the organization, on where you want to deploy, and so on. So we have different packages that would obviously suit your own budgets. And in terms of what's coming in the world of HR, I'm being part of many HR global leaders networks. There has been a lot of talk about how our function is changing. So obviously we've come from the gatekeepers of compliance to these HR business partners, and that's really a bit more the model that we're using, HR business partnering, where we get more into your business and can help you enhance the performance from your workforce. There is a science to all of this. It's not just about making people happy. It is about making them engaged so that they provide feedback. So we're also agile coaches, which is great. So it's for employees, contractors, managers, and yourself to really work together as a living organism, because this is what your business is, to delight your customers. It's simple, and it relies on trust, again, open communication, and being clear on here's where we're going. You do the here's where we're going, and we work on bringing people aligned to that cause, and non-fearful of saying, hey, do you know what, this doesn't work, let's try something different. A non-engaged employee tends to either become very vocal on multitude of different aspects, or the worst that you can have is passive aggression. I've seen it many, many times. And I've seen it also happen when disengagement, or I would call it lack of commitment, which is something else that we tend to measure when we work with the 5 behavior methodology. I find this absolutely amazing. So it happens quite a lot, especially, well, it's always happened, but I've been part of quite a few of those discussions in the last couple of months, where we sit as a leadership team and we agree in that meeting that we're going to do a recruitment freeze, right? Because the only way you can quickly and rapidly control costs is looking at your biggest cost, which is usually your employee base. So we agree on, travel freeze, hiring freeze. And after that meeting where everybody is present, 2 or 3 days later, I usually get my sales leaders, oh, but that doesn't apply to me, does it? So you end up being in a very awkward position, because it's like, well, haven't we just sat a couple of days ago and agreed on this? And then you'll have your Usually it's sales, then marketing come in and say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Or you'll have your research and development department going, well, this role is really critical. Now, this happens a lot in companies. It happens day in, day out, which means what was the point of the meeting in the first place? If you cannot get teams to commit, it goes a bit more in psychologies, but if you don't get your teams to commit, then what's the point of all of these meetings? Something else that is happening quite a lot at the moment in a lot of businesses is that I think it's typical human behavior, but we tend to these days, and I don't really know why, is it a fear of losing your job or fear of productivity, or we have never been in this situation before, so we haven't been educated. But what tends to happen, specifically the higher up the value chain you might be, that people are having regularly 8, 9, 10, 12 calls scheduled every day. And I used to do that a while back, where I'd be the polite one and check in someone's diary to see if they had an available slot. Well, they've got 30 minutes at lunchtime. Bam, I will set that meeting in. So I'll quite literally steal that person's lunch break. And now it's kind of just about emerging that a lot of us have meetings after 6, after 7. I have been online at 6:30 in the morning just to attend calls with some teams. And now I'm starting to ask myself, and also we're having discussions internally within VeryHR around this mental health and well-being. If people are spending their time, energy and efforts on 12 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours of meeting a day, what's happening to productivity? And I don't know if you realized with the Zoom frenzy that we've gone through, I will sometimes do meetings and see people typing. And you can clearly see, you just need to look at the eyeballs, and their eyes are moving. So they're clearly reading something whilst you're delivering whatever you're delivering, an update, or usually it's updates, or trying to bring a conversation. These people are reading, and I've done it as well. An email comes up and you read. So you end up putting yourself in a situation where you work from 9 to 5, which is a utopia these days, but you end up working 9 to 5, 6 hours of that were actual meetings. And during that time, you're still answering emails, looking at reports, phones, Sky News, and all of these distractions are coming in. It's great when you become aware of it on a personal level. I'm also a coach, so I work with some of our leaders on those aspects as well. But on an organizational level, I'm now starting to wonder the impact of this multitasking. I'll call it multitasking, or hyper Zoom phase. And I'm wondering whether this is why we're so fed up of it. Because what happens if you are, let's use common sense. If you are reading a text while someone is talking at you, you're not listening. You're not there. If you are, finishing your day and you have not touched your to-do list, these are the days where you go, I have no idea what happened today. If you have no rest time for this thing that is your unconscious mind and so on, then you're just draining yourself. And I wonder, for our passive aggressives, people who are not happy where they are, however, are staying in their jobs because the market is really tough out there. I'm wondering people who are working themselves to the bone because companies have had to lose headcount and someone's going to do the work. When are they going to burn out? Or are they going to have the energy, the courage to say, hey guys, there's something happening that is wrong? When we are being drained constantly with making decisions without giving ourselves the time to just stop and look into the horizon, on a mental well-being, I believe that this is going to have severe consequences for our working patterns in the future. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But this is exactly what I want you to think about. When you're thinking of bringing in HR, it's not just about the compliance. It's about bringing a true partner who can, tap on your shoulder, like on my weekly calls with my leaders. We often end up talking about these things around, well, how are we going to support? Well, this morning, France has just gone into a lockdown for a month. So this was a conversation that I had with one of my leaders around, okay, how can we support those home workers in France? Schools have closed, I believe, for 2 weeks. Are we going to offer flex working? Are we going to give 3-4 days discretionary leave to parents and beyond? And then, what's the process for asking HR about it? How are the other team members, those who might be in another country, going to take the fact that again they're going to have to cover the hours for their colleagues? I even come to the place where I don't think this is HR. I don't think HR should decide who gets to get furlough, for example, because now working parents can request furlough. I don't think this is a HR decision at all. However, as HR, I can help you think around, let's get that team together and let's work it out together. So instead of me saying as HR, any parent who has a child under the age of 3 years old will be entitled to apply for furlough, because that might be really unfair for people who have elderly parents and they want to spend time with them, or are shielding, or you don't know what's going on in somebody's life. You don't know of their challenges, etc. Getting the team together and getting them to own the problem, really own the problem and provide their own solution, I can assure you, you will get much better results, much better engagement, creativity, respect, teamwork, and all of that really, really, really feeding through the thread of who you are as a business. Are you looking after your people? Do your people matter? If they do, put your actions where your mouth is. And this is exactly what we do as VeryHR. We are here to provide this legal compliance piece, super important. We are here to help you with recruitment. We know tons of good recruitment agencies. We can build partnerships. We know how to set up a business in quite a few international countries as well, because we all are somewhat foreigners. The accent, I'm French and I also speak German. And we're here to really help you get the most out of people whilst not having to throw money at them or, really beat them up with a stick, because there is no need these days to use this approach. So things to consider when you are looking at bringing a HR partner into your franchise. One, what do you want? Do you want an off-the-shelf solution and you manage the rest? If yes, there are tons of resources out there available to you, and I'd encourage you to take a look. If you want a HR business partner type model, we definitely can offer that support. And we have different individuals on the portfolio who would be delighted to meet you. Usually I do the first meeting to understand your business and what you're looking for, and then I can introduce you to somebody else if I think that a member of our team might be more suitable. And if you really want to look at instead of being a hierarchical organization, especially with a franchise model, but really focus on this well-being, agile thinking, and flexible, innovative, exciting environment to be in, then we'd also definitely be up to help you with this transformation or creation. So thank you very much for listening. My name is Julie Provino. As I've mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO, apparently, for VeryHR. No background, no thrills. Let's be down to earth, authentic, and frank speaking, because these are the values of my own company. And I'm hoping, you got a couple of things to think about, and to hear from you in the near future. Thank you very much.